I'm Jinkx Monsoon, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Jinkx Monsoon, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I've only been awake for an hour, so, you're getting me fresh.
I can relate to that. It's very early morning for me still.
Yeah, I am. I'm more of a nocturnal creature.
Me too. That makes sense. When you come over to the UK, do you adjust to the time?
Time has just become kind of relative to me because I travel so much. So, I had a really hard time adjusting to the time shift on this particular trip. But it doesn't stop me from having to do my job, so I've just been kind of doing it exhausted for the last couple of weeks.
I think most people are like in their jobs, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I just, having narcolepsy, I just take as many naps as I can throughout the day, and then I'm jack myself up on Red Bull for my show, and then right after the show, I'm ready to go right back to bed.
That's amazing. That's perfect. So tell me, did you always want to get into sort of performing and singing and theatrical stuff?
Yeah, I think as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a performer. Wanting to be a performer basically trumps everything else in my life. So drag was another medium with which I found the ability to perform. And, when I realized it was my way into the career that I always wanted, I latched on and held on for dear life.
That's amazing. You started doing it at about the age of 15, is that correct?
Yeah, about 14 or 15. I think I may have been 14 the first time I was fully done up in drag, but I started performing regularly at age 15. And I was really lucky to grow up in a city with an all-ages queer dance club, so I had somewhere to do drag, and from 15 on I was working every weekend as a drag queen, and then I started working in drag bars at a very early age. And it was just my after school job. My mom told me I needed to get an after school job, and my options were I could work at a coffee shop, or I could work at a grocery store, or I could be a drag queen.
Those are the options when you leave school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember what your first performances were like when you got up there on stage? Were you nervous?
I wasn't nervous because, I was taking dance classes at the time and singing lessons, and I was acting in school plays, so I was very comfortable on stage already, and it was what I really wanted to do. So I was never really nervous. I just always was very, very excited. I would volunteer to do anything that would allow me to be on stage in front of an audience. My early drag performances, it was me and my friend Etienne. I've always liked having a partner on stage. I'm comfortable alone, but I always have more fun with another person to play off of. So my friend Etienne and I would dress up like wind-up dolls, like old French porcelain wind-up dolls. I don't know if those even exist, but in my mind, they were old French porcelain wind-up dolls, and
at least two of them existed on stage.
Yeah. And we would perform our numbers like wind-up dolls, and that was our whole bit for the first couple of years that I did drag, and then eventually, Jinkx started talking, and she became less of a wind-up doll and more of a cheap imitation of my mother.
Is it right that you got your name was inspired by Dina Monsoon in Absolutely Fabulous?
Yeah, my mom and her best friend traveled to London multiple times when I was a kid, and so they'd always bring back stuff for all the kids, and what they brought me back was a lot of British television. So from a very early age, maybe 9 or 10 years old, I was watching Absolutely Fabulous, the Harry Enfield television program, and Harry Enfield and Friends, Keeping Up Appearances, The Young Ones. It really shaped my sense of humor at a very, very early age, to the point where American comedies just kind of seemed too slapstick to me because I preferred, well, I shouldn't say that Absolutely Fabulous doesn't rely on some slapstick sometimes, but I preferred the kind of like dry, sarcastic humor of the British.
It's amazing. And is that kind of how you started developing your character? Is Jinkx an extension of you?
Yeah, Jinkx is all of my fiercest qualities and all of my personal traits that maybe I wouldn't want to put on display in any other fashion, you know? I mean, to be a performer, you have to be inherently a little bit vain, a little bit egocentric. Even if you have the best of intentions, there's a little bit of, you know, narcissism there. So I kind of just filter it all into Jinkx. I always say that Jinkx is, you know, she's me if you turn my personality up to 1,000, and I'm able to get my demons out through Jinkx. I think, like, you know, I try my best to be a positive person and you know, only carry positivity with me throughout my day and interact with people as politely as I can. And and with Jinkx, I don't have to worry about any of that social etiquette. I just let my rage fly out in a way that is maybe helpful and entertaining.
And it very much is.
Yeah.
And when you first introduced Jinkx to the world, how did your friends and family react? Did anyone come and see your shows or anything like that?
Yeah, my friends were, it was no surprise to my friends when I started doing drag. They all were like, it took you this long, you know? At age 15, all my friends just already assumed I'd be a drag queen eventually. Oh, really? And my aunt and my grandma were amongst the first of my family members to know, and they were very supportive. My grandma let me store all of my drag at her house, so I would spend the weekend at my grandma's house and get into drag there and then ride my bike down to the clubs. And my grandma always had like the last look at my outfit before I took off for my evening. And I kind of just kept it from my mom for a while, just because that's where me and my mom were at in our relationship at that time. But I think a couple years later, my mom came to one of my drag shows for her birthday, and she had an amazing time. And from that moment on, my mom was just all for it, you know. And especially nowadays, now that I've been able to turn it into a career, just everyone in my family couldn't be happier for me.
That's fantastic. I'm very pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
And so tell me how you first ended up on RuPaul's Drag Race. Were you a fan of the show beforehand? What's the application process like? How did it happen?
The first year that it happened, I was not interested in watching a TV show about drag queens because I worked in drag bars, and I honestly felt like, well, the last thing I want to do when I'm not working with drag queens is watch them on TV. You know, because it's a cutthroat world to be a drag queen. You know, the competition's high, and even though you make a lot of friends, you also make a lot of frenemies and a lot of rivals when you compete in the drag world. So I was, you know, I wasn't interested in watching drag on TV because I was living it in my life. Then season 2 happened, and it was the episode of the Snatch Game. And then I realized, okay, so this is so much more than I thought it was. Like, I thought it was a reality TV show where we just watched drag queens bitch at each other. I didn't realize it was like Drag Olympics. And so I watched the Snatch Game season 2. I was really impressed by Pandora Box, by bringing Carol Channing. You know, I like the kind of old school impersonations. That's what got me into the show. By season 4, when I watched Sharon Needles go on and do a drag that was completely different than what had been done before and then win, that was when I was like, okay, so maybe season 5 is the time I should audition, because I could feel the show starting to evolve and metamorphosize to essentially what it is today, where it doesn't matter what kind of drag you do, as long as you do it as best you can, you know, as long as you're taking what you do to its fullest extent. It doesn't matter which way you choose to do it. So Sharon Needles was my inspiration. I auditioned for season 5. I got on. The process was daunting. You know, they do a psych evaluation to make sure you're not going to completely lose your mind through the process. And that was the most nervous part of it, because I was afraid. I was like, you know, with how crazy my family is, I'm sure some crazy has seeped in over the years. But yeah, it all went well. I went on, and I couldn't be more pleased with the results.
Absolutely. Unless you ended up hosting the show or something.
Yeah, unless they got a spin-off.
Exactly. Now, one of the very first challenges, you were tasked with climbing into a giant tank of water for an underwater photo shoot. What was that like? Was it sort of scary? Was it difficult to even do that?
I think throughout the entire competition, that might have been the most nerve-wracking, scariest moment for me, because I'm not a good swimmer. I don't like going underwater. I don't like having water shoot up my nose. It really gives me anxiety. And I ended up losing one of my contact lenses because we had to open our eyes under the water for the photo. Yeah. I ended up losing one of my contact lenses like on day 1, and I didn't have my other contacts with me, so I had to go the rest of the day with just not being able to see out of one eye because I'm quite blind, which is why I wrapped that scarf around my head on the first day of filming. And it was honestly day 1. I had to do the most terrifying thing of the entire competition, but it kind of bolstered me and made me feel more confident in myself, because if my first challenge is one of the most terrifying things I've ever done, then the rest of the competition has to be a cakewalk, right? It wasn't, but I at least spent the first day feeling like that.
There was also that fitness challenge where you had to keep doing exercises.
Yeah, I mean, I can exercise if someone's there yelling at me to do it. Like, I was always good in dance class. I never gave up in dance class because I kind of like the structure and the routine of someone telling you what to do. Otherwise, I just won't exercise. But the thing that was hard about that is, for a month of filming, we were just, we were spending all our days sitting around doing our makeup. And then when you're not in the workroom working, you're in your hotel room just watching TV, laying around. So it was like a whole month of us just kind of being, our muscles atrophying. And then all of a sudden they bring in a boot camp instructor and make us all exercise. And it was 4 of us. All 4 of us were just sore and exhausted for the rest of the filming because of that.
I was exhausted watching it. I had to go and take a nap afterwards.
I mean, I was sore from that day until we were finished filming.
Still walking it off now. It's terrible.
I have like a internalized memory of that experience.
Me too, for some reason. I don't know. Just even seeing people exercise. What were your favourite challenges? Which ones did you love? Which ones, when they were sort of introduced to you, did you get excited about?
Definitely the Snatch Game. I went on Drag Race saying, as long as I make it to Snatch Game, I'm going to be okay with whatever the results are, I knew I didn't want to go home first. No one wants to go home first. I was hoping I'd make it halfway through. When I went on Drag Race, I just tried my best to be very realistic. Like, winning was never even in my mind. Just doing my best each episode was the only thing I was thinking about when I went on. So when I made it to Snatch Game, I was like, well, I've already accomplished my main goal I set for myself, so now I have to set new goals. So every new challenge, I would just set a new goal for myself, like, I hope today I make RuPaul laugh, or I hope today Michelle says she likes my look. I would just set little tiny goals for myself along the way. I think the challenge that excited me the most besides Snatch Game was the roast challenge. And I wasn't even the best at the roast for that challenge, but I do really believe in the art form of the roast. the mutual consent between all the performers on stage and the audience watching that we are going to say the worst possible things we can think of in an effort to celebrate each other. And I think that's why, especially right now in the LGBTQ community, because every year I do this roast tour in the States called the Haters Roast. For the last 3 years, and I had to think of a reason why I justify doing like maybe politically incorrect humor or doing offensive humor in an effort to celebrate people in today's day and age when we're trying to weed that out in our society. How I could work as a social justice warrior and a queer advocate in my day-to-day life, but then also do a show where I make fun of all my friends. And I always am reminded of a quote by Gypsy Rose Lee, which is, nobody laughs at me because I laugh at me first. And I think of that like we're building a thick skin for ourselves. And especially right now when the world is so divided between people who believe in progress and people who don't. And that's just the quickest way you can say it. But, I think it's important for us to build a thick skin within our safe space. So then we're more equipped to go out into the world and face our actual enemies. So I think roast humor has a place in the LGBTQ community right now it's a very specific purpose it's serving. So that was my favorite challenge, and it remains something that's my favorite thing to do today.
Absolutely. That's a really great way of looking at it too, I think. Now, of course, you went on to win the show, season 5. Very exciting. How did your life change at that point?
Well, we film the show, and then they edit it for about, I think it was almost 6 months between finishing filming and the announcement going out that, who was on season 5 and stuff. So I basically knew that I had a 1 in 3 chance of winning RuPaul's Drag Race, and then had to go back to my normal life and pretend like nothing had happened. And I was very grateful for that period of time where I got to go back to my life being completely how it was beforehand, and get one last little taste of that because when you work professionally as a drag queen, and when drag is already such a big part of your life, and then you go on the first and still only TV show that celebrates drag in the way that it does, your whole life completely changes. Like, for drag to be your career, you spend pretty much all of your time thinking about it or talking about it. I think that's true with any art form or any career where, it's not just a career, it's a lifestyle. So after the episodes started airing, it's easier to list the ways that my life didn't change than to list all the ways that it did, because it changed in every single way.
One thing I must ask, at the beginning of this season, Rue lists all of the prizes that the winner will eventually get. So there's a cash prize, $100,000, makeup. There's also a luxury trip. Did you go on a luxury trip, and if so, where to?
It's kind of a sore subject.
Oh.
No, I never got that prize.
You never got it?
I ended up working with that company. And there was just I don't know, it was a communication breakdown or something, because the company that offered those prizes also did a drag race themed cruise where people could book a cruise and cruise with your favorite drag race stars. Right. So I did one of those cruises as an employee for that company, and when I agreed to do that, I was like, oh, so now that we're talking about this, let's talk about my prize. Right. And they kind of implied that working for them was my prize. Wow. It was a very confusing thing, and I decided rather than to fight them on it that I would leverage my situation, and I said, well, I'm not gonna push you to give me my prize, but every time I work for you, I want to be put up in a suite. So I ended up working for them a lot because they put me in a suite, and that was the way I negotiated that deal. And I had a great time on those cruises because I had the nicest room.
Yeah, because I just wondered that when I was watching it at the time. I wondered where you went, and so now I know.
Well, since I was working on those cruises, I was more focused on the job than the locations we were going. But I did like 4 or 5 of those cruises, and we went all over, all over Europe, and then we've done some South American cruises. And so, that combined with all my tour work, I've been everywhere in the world except for Asia.
Oh, wow.
It's the Asia and Russia are the 2 places I've yet to go, but otherwise I've been everywhere else.
It's good you're getting to see a lot of the world as well.
Yeah. It's been a blur because most times I only get into the city, we do the show, and then it's on to the next city. But still I'm getting an opportunity that only a handful of people get in their lives to get to see most of the world. By the time I was 30,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now you returned to Drag Race for season 10, made an appearance. If they ever did a winners season with everyone that's won every single show and All Stars everything, would you go back to that?
My mind changes all the time on this because in some ways, I wouldn't want to tamper with what's already happened. Yeah. I wouldn't want to go back. I had such a great time the first time that I would hate to even risk the second time not being as wonderful, And that's the risk you take. And then at the same time, I would love to show the RuPaul's Drag Race audience how much I've evolved since my season. Because, I evolved on my season from episode 1 till the moment I was crowned. I was evolving, and some criticized me for that, you should already be polished and perfect when you go into the competition. And I'm like, if you're not willing to grow throughout the competition, then you're not doing the competition right. The competition's all about challenging yourself to do new things, to do things you've never done before. And so my evolution in that competition, I think, was a big part of why I won, because I was willing to adapt and grow and get better constantly. And that's what it takes to be a professional in this career. So I would love to show just how far I've come since my season and how much I've honed in on Jinkx Monsoon as a persona, but then also my craft as a performer. So, it really just depends on what's going on for me that day you ask me, but it's a 50-50 chance I would say yes.
Exciting. Just have to. So even if you say no, just ask, and the next day you may say yes.
It's entirely possible.
And you'll get there and go, nah. I look forward to that happening and not happening. Then.
Yeah. It's kind of like
Schrodinger's drag queen.
Cat, yeah.
So RuPaul's Drag Race is also coming to the UK. Would you ever consider being a guest star on that?
Oh, yeah. That's a yes immediately. Yeah. I just really connect with my audiences here in the UK. And I'm really excited that it's coming to the UK because there's just so much wonderful drag talent here. And the UK actually, I think, has a longer history with drag than America does. And drag has been kind of more main place in British culture than it has been in American culture. We just beat you to the punch as far as creating a TV show about it. But then it's just also I think of the first night I spent in London ever. We went to Molly Moggs, and it was just such a typical pub. But then also there was a grande dame drag queen putting on a cabaret show. And I was like, this just seems to be so common in the culture here. It's not too weird of a thing to see a man dressed as a woman singing Liza Minnelli.
Of course. Speaking of which, who are your inspirations?
I think the biggest inspirations on my drag persona are Madeline Kahn, Lucille Ball, Betty Davis, Bette Midler, and Carol Burnett. Okay. And then also the divas that just really like inspire me are I draw a lot from like Shirley Bassey, Liza Minnelli and Judy Garland, Bernadette Peters, and I don't know. I'm really obsessed with Broadway and old Hollywood. And there are modern influences like Maria Bamford and Sarah Silverman and Amanda Palmer. Estelle, because of her work on Steven Universe, has just become a favorite diva of mine.
Amazing. Tell us a fun fact about you, something we may not know, a piece of trivia, something like that.
I think it's become kind of common knowledge, but I'm a big video game nerd.
What's your favorite?
I play a lot of Overwatch. Okay. I'll say Overwatch. My favorite video game series of all time is Zelda, The Legend of Zelda. But I play a lot of Overwatch, and if you don't know, it's there's like a huge array of heroes to choose from. And what I love about the game is that there's all different cultures represented in it, and pretty much all of the characters are voiced by someone of that background. So you don't have white people voicing, African characters. It's all people from the background of the character that they're voicing, which I absolutely love. And then it's basically just a bunch of superheroes playing capture the flag, and it's a shoot 'em up game. And I always say it's the most masculine thing that I do is play that video game.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I played Zelda when I was a kid on the original Nintendo, and at the time the only way you could save the game was by pressing the off button and the reset button at the same time. I played it for an entire day, did that slightly wrong, lost everything.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the only things my dad and I bonded over as a kid was video games. And I remember sitting and watching, and then it would be with the old school original Nintendo, if you got up and walked past it and bumped it at all and the game froze, it was devastating. I'm so glad that we've taken leaps and bounds with technology just for that one reason.
You had to kind of perform CPR on the cartridge to make you able to breathing into it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Oh, what a different time that was.
Nintendo still use cartridges.
Yeah, but I mean, nowadays you can just download the games through Wi-Fi, and then you've got a 20-hour video game just downloaded to your console. It's amazing.
It's very exciting. We're in the future.
Nerding out of.
I know, right? Absolutely. Now, your new show, Ginger Snapped, I saw it the other day, opening night at Leicester Square Theatre. It's amazing. It's so much fun. Lots of amazing songs. Tell me about it. Not me. Tell them I've seen it.
Well, so Major and I have now done 2 full feature albums, and what we always try to do when we have a new album is write a cabaret show that features that music but also stands alone as a show. So the first album was just your traditional cabaret show. It was just me kind of, setting up the songs by telling you little stories and stuff. This new show, The Ginger Snapped, is more of a plot-driven cabaret show. And the whole idea is that we are there to play you the music from our album, just as a straightforward concert. But what happens is Jinkx hits the stage and is having a slight breakdown and is questioning her worth and questioning if she's still got it, questioning if this is the end of her career. And she's having an emotional breakdown. And Major Scales, my music partner, suggests that maybe it's time that I talk to a healthcare professional, a mental health professional. And I'm so eager to do so that we begin right then and there. And so Major quickly shifts from pianist to therapist, and the whole show plays out like a live psychotherapy session on stage. And I really wanted to keep it lighthearted and, tongue-in-cheek, because it is a heavy subject matter. But I also think the only way that we destigmatize talking about it is to just start talking about it, And the way that I kept it lighthearted was not by generalizing anyone else's experience or trying to generalize depression, anxiety, substance abuse, mental health. I didn't generalize any of these topics by giving you blanket statements about it. I only tell my own stories relating to my own experiences with my own mental health. So we do have the conversation, but we're able to laugh at it because I'm just telling you ridiculous stories from my life that have led me to take ownership of my own mental health and seek ways to cope, because depression and anxiety, it's running rampant in the LGBT community for many reasons, and we talk about it in the show, but that's kind of the big finale, so I don't want to give it away. But
yeah, the finale was really powerful and really sort of resonated with me as well, and it's great that you could include that in it. Didn't seem out of place in the show either. There's emotional bits and lots of humour and songs and stuff, but it was a sort of perfect ending, I thought.
Well, my favorite teacher in university, and I went to Cornish College in Seattle for acting, and my favorite teacher, who's become a good friend of mine, Kira, said, if you want to have 10 minutes of if you want to have 10 minutes of tragedy on stage, you're going to get away with it better if you have 50 minutes of comedy. She's a big believer in the larger than life theatrical experience, and she always said that you can get away with tragedy more if you give them comedy first. You set them up, you draw them in with the comedy, and then you knock them over the head with the tragedy.
That's very good advice. I must say, by the way, I loved the music video for Cartoons and Vodka that was in the background. I was kind of mesmerised by it, and then found out obviously you'd released it as a music video too, and yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things in becoming successful has been working with people I've always worked with or people I've known for years, and now having the resources and the ability and the reason for us to put out really big projects. And that goes for my dress designers. I've worked with Jamie Von Straten in Seattle and Dallas Coulter in San Francisco, basically my whole time performing professionally post Drag Race. And then I've worked with the same wig designers, Dennis Benzie and Jack Baxter, who's actually British. He runs Wig Chapel, and he does a lot of my signature ginger wigs. Yeah. And then Mackenzie Kerman was the director and lead animator for that music video. And he and I went to middle school together. Oh, wow. And when I decided I wanted to have an all-animated music video, I just remembered, well, Mackenzie works in animation now. I should hit him up. And that was a passion project for both of us, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out.
Absolutely, because I've got a degree in animation, and I was watching and I loved all the homages to different styles of animation, Betty Boop and Snoopy and all those kind of things. It was great.
Yeah, what he did is he assembled, because animation is extremely expensive. Mm-hmm. So even though I was willing to pay whatever it took to have my dream come true with an all-animated music video, I also am a frugal businesswoman. So we came up with the most cost-effective solution was to use a team of animators and give each of them chunks of the music video and have them just responsible for that one chunk of the music video. And my whole idea for the music video in the first place was to be like as if you were channel surfing, and Jinkx is just on every cartoon on every channel. I'm still a huge cartoon nerd to this day, like not just cartoons made for adults like, you know, like Rick and Morty and Bob's Burgers and stuff like that, but I still watch cartoons that I watched as a kid because I just feel I feel comforted by those nostalgic cartoons I used to watch as a kid.
They're bringing a lot of them back, like She-Ra and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God, She-Ra was amazing. I've been watching The Dragon Prince, and of course, I mean, I'm obsessed with Rick and Morty, and I've seen every episode like 8 times now, and it's also been having an influence on my sense of humor lately.
That's amazing. Now, in May, you're taking part in Peaches Christ's Drag Becomes Her.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
I mean, it's exactly what you'd think. It's a drag parody of the movie Death Becomes Her, which is my all-time favorite film. And I think I don't know a single drag queen who hasn't seen that movie. Like, it's kind of like, it's one of those movies that are part of the drag queen holy trinity. You know, it's like, it's Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, it's Tu Wong Fu, and it's Death Becomes Her, which has 0 drag in it, except for the fact that Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep are essentially drag queens in that. I mean, they're obsessed with their image. They do whatever it takes. They go through extreme transformations to become the fierce goddess within, but then they also kill each other. It's amazing. It's everything you want in a movie. Whoever you are. I don't know one person who has seen that movie and hasn't been profoundly changed by it. But so in our production, it's it's all your favorite moments from the movie, but rewritten to be about myself and Ben de la Creme. So we play the Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn characters, but the characters are also us at the same time. So it's this hybrid between the movie you love and the drag queens you love, and it all plays out really, really well on stage. So I play the Meryl Streep role, Ben de la Creme plays the Goldie Hawn role, Peaches Christ plays Isabella Rossellini's role, and in our show she's named Liesel von Ramen Noodles, and that just goes to show just like how Peaches' scripts are hilarious, they're brilliant, and they're also so stupid, and I love it because I think some of the best theater comes from stupid ideas. You take a stupid idea and then you find a way to make it brilliant, and that's some of the best theater I've ever seen.
Basically describes my show as well. That's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Now, going back to Ginger Snaps, I must also say it was kickstarted to start with, wasn't it? And the project's crowdfunded, and now it's available on streaming platforms, and you can buy it and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to do the album as best as I possibly could. Yeah. And, you know, when you do an album these days, there's no real money in putting out an album unless you make it real big. Like, I'm sure Adore made some good money from her albums because she's a bona fide pop star. I've accepted I'm not a pop star. I'm a niche category as far as the music that I like to create. Oh, and I can't forget Trixie Mattel top charted the country music chart. So, you know, it's possible to become a big music star as a drag queen. Yeah. I've just accepted that I'm more of a niche market. So I'm creating the music because I'm passionate about it and because I liked then, you know, using the music in my shows. But I'm not setting out to become any kind of, you know, top 40s pop star. But for that reason, I thought I could produce a much better album if I had twice as much money to put into it. So I raised $20,000 from crowdsourcing and then put in $20,000 of my own money so that I had $40,000 to work with to produce an album that I'm extremely proud of. And, you know, for producing an album on $40,000 is still, I mean, that's on the budget end of things. And luckily, Major and I work so well together, and we always are, sharing the same mindset. And we worked with a wonderful producer, Yair Evneen, who was suggested to us by our friend Lady Rizzo, who comes to the UK all the time with her shows. He produced her album, Violet, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I told him, we're gonna have about $40,000 to work with. Can you create my 90s garage band throwback dream album that I've always wanted to do with $40,000? And he said yes. And I mean, I don't think you can tell by listening to it that we were very frugal in the way that we created that album, because to me, it sounds like a masterpiece. I'm very, very happy with it.
True story. After I saw your show that night, on the train home, I was listening to your album, so I wanted to hear it again.
Well, I'm glad. That's the goal for the show. And yeah, we have it on iTunes, and you can buy a physical copy from my website, which is jinxmonsoon.com. But also it's on Spotify, because honestly, I'm not worried about making money off of the album. I'm worried about people hearing the music, because Major Scales is just such an amazing composer, and he writes music specifically for me. The way we work together is I tell him an idea I have in my mind. I tell him what I want the song to be about. Then I leave him alone for 2 weeks, and then he's created a song. So a lot of those songs, Cartoons and Vodka, Just Me, The Gender Binary Blues, This Town, they're all, Take It Back. They are written about my own life experiences. Sugar Mama is one that I wrote myself about sex positive, my sex positive mindset. But when I listen to the songs, I just get so overwhelmed that, like, I'm lucky enough to have a best friend who's also a brilliant composer, who takes my life experiences and turns it into wonderful music.
You've got amazing chemistry together too.
Well, I think that just comes from working as long as we have together. We also used to live together. We lived together for like 7 years. So it was like we would just be sitting around the house watching TV or playing video games, and an idea would pop into one of our heads, and then we'd just start playing around. We'd stop whatever we were doing and kind of talk as our characters and start coming up, start honing in on this idea. And then a month later, it's a part of our show.
It's fantastic. And the album's amazing. I highly recommend it. And I also recommend seeing the show live as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your endorsement.
I absolutely do. What are your favourite songs to perform live, be it your own or anyone else's? Because you've got an incredibly powerful voice.
I love my favorite musicals to perform numbers from are Gypsy, Chicago, Into the Woods, Sweeney Todd. I'm a big Sondheim nerd. And then my favorite songs to perform from our music are probably Cartoons and Vodka is one of my favorites, just because especially when we have the music video playing, it's just like all of my favorite things coming together in one place. I love performing Just Me because it was written not only from my experiences, but also for my voice specifically. So I just get so much joy out of singing that song and watching the jokes hit the people, and then watching the message hit the people that I'm performing for. It's really rewarding.
And it's rewarding for the audience, so it's amazing.
I hope so.
Tell me what else you're working on this year. Of course, you've got another show coming up as well. Is there anything else in the pipeline?
Besides Drag Becomes Her, the next big project I'm taking on is every summer Major and I write a new show for our residency in Provincetown, Massachusetts, which is a gay resort town in Cape Cod. Like rich people in New England go to Cape Cod, like the Hamptons, and they spend their summers there. So gay people were jealous and decided we needed our own town to do that in, and that's Provincetown, Massachusetts. And it's an amazing tight-knit little community. And during the summer, drag queens migrate there and put on cabaret shows all summer long. So you could walk down the main road and like on, like just looking from left to right, you see Lady Bunny and Dina Martina and Varla Jean Merman and Jinkx Monsoon and Benda La Creme. And there's just, Jackie Beat. I don't want to leave anyone out. I'm sorry if I didn't mention you. Jimmy James, Sherry Vine, Coco Peru. You just see a ton of world-class drag talent all in one space. Anyway, we write a new show every year for that, and we don't always get to tour those shows because sometimes they're specifically written for Provincetown. Yeah. Like last year, we did a show called Beach City Bimbo, so I can't necessarily bring that to London because I don't think you've ever seen a beach if you live here. But
not really. I've seen photos of them. I mean, we do have them, but they're covered in fog and stuff.
Yeah. So we're writing a show this year. Still haven't settled on a title, but the premise is it's set 45 years in the future. Jinkx Monsoon and Major Scales are in their 70s. They haven't spoken to each other for like the last 20 years. And the producers have convinced them to come together for one last tour. And so it's the idea that it's our like farewell tour. We're going to retire after this, and it's a retrospective on our work. But since it's set 45 years in the future, a lot of the retrospective is going to be stuff that's never happened, hasn't happened yet. So I'm really excited about writing that show. It's been something we've talked about for years, but we're finally doing it. And then we've already talked to the Soho Theatre Company about bringing it to the UK next year. So this time next year, you might be interviewing me about my show in which I play a 75-year-old version of myself.
Very much look forward to that.
Yeah.
You're welcome back on the show anytime, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
Very welcome. Now, finally, Jinkx Monsoon, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell show today and your fans around the world?
This is a message I ended my set with in the Haters Roast. So I would spend about 25 minutes to half an hour just tearing apart other drag queens and tearing them down. And then I would say, people of color deserve your love, respect, and support. Protect trans kids. Trans rights are human rights. And fuck Donald Trump.
I'm Sarah O'Connell and I approve this message. Jinkx Monsoon, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute delight talking to you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you everybody for watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up and leave lots of lovely comments. And I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye. Thank you, that was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Really enjoyed it. So that's the rehearsal done that I mentioned. So we're just going to do this 9 more times. No.